Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. I'm calling you from Chesapeake, Virginia, and I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitch. So welcome aboard. Those who are here for the first time, give me a sign in, and as far as subscribe to my channel. And the chat room is live, and I'm in my studio today with my wife Gloria.
Hello.
And she'll be monitoring the broadcast and also checking the chat room for me. So those of you for the first time, welcome aboard. I'm glad to see you here. Appreciate any comments and questions you may have, and put those in the chat room live right now, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Today I'm going to be doing a small painting, and it's going to be about complementary colors. And complementary colors are everywhere you look. If you're out in nature, especially in nature, there's a lot of complementary colors out there, and you need to be aware of some of those. And I'm always out there looking for a complementary color. Now, complementary colors are opposite. We'll go through those in a few moments. And let me go to my painting table, and let me introduce that to you. Overhead. The photograph I have today is my reference photograph. This is a photograph of, these are some flowers, and they got some trees in the background and so forth. This is a local area. This is within 200 meters from my house. And I go by this every time I go out for a run. And I was running by this the other day, last week, and I saw this view, and I said, wow, I've been looking for complementary colors, and I said, this is it. I got the green and the red, which is the complementary, and I got the dark and the light with the white flowers and against the dark background. And that's exactly what I was looking for. The complementary colors here on the color wheel. The red is opposite the green in the color wheel. That's the definition of complementary. And there's lots of other examples, sunsets and sunrises, where you have the orange sky and the blue water, and the blue sky, and you have other colors around. So you'll be looking around for complementary colors throughout nature. It's really out there, very evident. And also, I'll turn this over. There's also the complementary of lights and darks. There's the white against the black, which is a complementary, two opposite colors, white and black. So those are the two areas I'm going to be talking about today. I've got the green and the red here with these flowers, and I've got the white against the dark background with these flowers over here. So I'm getting both contrast, both complementary color sets. Let me put that aside. What I've done is I've gone ahead and done a design drawing. So I took the photograph, and I did a little bit of moving some things around, but basically it's the same sort of configuration. But this is the design photograph, design drawing that I drew up, that I'll use for my painting today. And the design drawing and the photograph, the reference photograph, will be in my Foreground Watercolors page on my website, everettswatercolors.com. So you can download those by going to Foreground Watercolors on my website, and you can paint along with me. And you can post your results, post your painting on my Everett's Watercolors art page on Facebook. So the links for those locations of my Foreground Watercolors and my Facebook page will be on the description of the video today. Okay, let me go over some of the materials I'll be using very quickly here. This is Strathmore Watercolor. This is a watercolor paper block, and it measures 9 by 12. And I'll be using that for the painting today. And the colors I'm going to use over here are on my palette. I'm basically going to use primary colors. I'm going to use the blue, and I'm going to use red and green. Maybe a little bit of yellow, but that's about it. I'm going to really limited palette as far as the colors go. And then the brushes I'm going to use the Holbein number 4 rigger, which is a nice has a nice long hairs to it, but it becomes very handy when I'm doing a little detail work or very intricate work. So I'm going to try that today with the rigger. And also for mixing and doing some other special work on the painting, I'll be using a 3/4 inch flat Holbein synthetic brush. These are both synthetic brushes, but they're both very nice. And they're on my website, everettswatercolors.com. And I'll be using Holbein's Artist Watercolors for my painting. So let me get started. I'm going to start out here now. I started out to save the whites of the paper. Instead of trying to paint around all the white flowers, I've gone ahead and put some masking fluid on my drawing. You can see the masking fluid. So I masked out some of the areas that I want to save the white paper for the white flowers, and that makes the painting process go a little bit faster, a little bit smoother. So I went ahead and designed that out that way. So my colors, I'm going to start out with I'll wet my palette with a little bit of water with the 3/4 inch brush, and I'm going to start out with the Hooker's green. I'm going to start with a green color first. So I got Hooker's green here. That I'm going to have in the middle of the palette, and then I'm going to rinse out the brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of Ultramarine Blue. That'll give me a dark green. I mix the blue with the green. That gives me a darker mix. So that gives me a dark green. And then I'll come down here and pick up a little bit of lemon yellow, and that'll give me a light green. So that way, that's all the colors I need for the greenery. So I use those three colors: the red, the green, the blue, and the yellow, and that'll give me the colors I need for this particular painting. All right. So the first place I'm going to start, I'm going to start over here with the white colors here. And I'm going to use like a medium value here. So I'm going to kind of put a little extra water to that mixture of the blue and green. But I'm going to put a little bit of water to that. I want a kind of a light mixed. And I'm going to go in and put in, and I've got this masked out so I can go across here and fill these in fairly quickly. And I may leave white paper showing, but that's okay. But what I'm going to do is cover this area up for this particular group of flowers. And so this light color, or actually it's a medium green is what the value is. It's like a medium green. I mixed up the blue and the green, and I put a little bit of water to that, so it gave me a medium value. And I'll go over here and finish this up here, and I'll continue on. So this contrasting color, this green is I'm going to darken this up even more. This is just to get me started. This is kind of the first layer. So the first layer is going to kind of middle value. And the middle value means it's medium value. It's not dark and it's not light. It's medium. Yeah, I'll continue on here. I got another bush out here. And you'll notice here when I've finished this up here, I've also kept in the design. I got different sizes. There's a little white bush back here in the background. I'll put a little bit of greenery on that. That's mostly white, but a little bit of green to show some of the color of the leaves. And over here, one last little white bush, a little flower grouping. I really don't know what the name. I should look these up. I don't know what the name of these flowers are, but they're very pretty. They're on the entranceway to the roadway here. And as I say, I go running by though when I go out running, my route takes you right. I go past these every time I go out. And as I was coming back today from my run, or last week, I was coming back from my run. I saw this view and I said, "Wow, that's exactly what I was looking for." A nice contrasting color, so forth. And you'll also notice, if you'll count the numbers, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, I got 7, an odd number of bushes. And there's no secret to that, but I always like to have odd numbers in my art, and this just to keep it from going. I don't like, the even numbers are boring, so I like odd numbers to make it more interesting. Now I'm going to use a little bit of the light green now. And I'll mix it up. I want to get a little more yellow in that. So this is going to be a light green mix. So I got the green in the palette. I'm mixing it up here, and I'm going to use the rigger brush. Use the rigger brush with a long, fine point with long, fine bristles to it, and load it up with that light green. I'm going to go ahead and put the now on this particular one here, the green with the red, the green with the red flowers. I'm going to paint around them. And what I mean by painting around, I'm not going to really paint around every one, but I'm going to put in some greenery, and I'm going to leave a lot of whites showing to go back in later on and show the flowers. So here I'm doing a little bit of negative painting in this case. The first one I did positive painting was I painted the greenery around the massed in area. Now this particular one here, I'm doing a negative painting around I'm leaving the white paper open so I can go back in with another color as this dries. So here I'm using a little bit of negative painting, and I'm trying to make each one of these a little different shape and a little different size. And that's one of the things in art that you try to do. You try to make different sizes and different shapes of whatever subject matter it is. It doesn't matter if it's here a flower, or it could be a tree, or it could be any part of the landscape, even a mountain. You can do mountains, you do rocks, any part of the landscape. You want to try to make the sizes and the shapes different size, different quantities, and you want to make a variety. Make a variety of the size, a variety of the shape. This is the most predominant one, so I'm taking a little more time on this one, because this is the one that's going to show up a little bit more than the others. And I'm going to go ahead now with these other, more or less in the middle ground here. I'm going to fill these in, leave some whites, leave some white areas showing, because I'm going to put more color in that later. So I'm doing some more negative painting here, putting the light green. And I'm keeping the sizes of the white spaces different. I'm keeping different shapes, different sizes, so that there's a variety of these shapes around this particular area. And this is also a light value. I'll be going a little bit later with a darker value on top of this, but right now I've got this is a light value. I started out with a medium value on the first set of bushes I did, and now I'm putting in a lighter value on these. Again, for the just to give me a variety of color. Don't want them all the same. Even the greenery, I want these are different flower groupings, so they have different colors of green. And that's another thing you need to look at when you're doing something like this, is to make a variety of different colors of the particular scene. If it's a greenery scene like this, you need to make sure your greens have a variety of greens, lights and darks, and make a special purpose for making them different. That they're different flowers, different distances. The lighting is on them differently, so that's why they're different. Now back here, I'm going to put a little bit of greenery back here in this particular bush. It's going to have another color with it. Okay, I left one out now. I'm going to finish this one off. So this, again, I'm taking a little more time because I'm going to make sure I'm going to leave lots of white space open for the next layer of coloring. But these are going to be the red. I'm going to put the red next to this green on these, so these are special, along with the white ones, which will have a darker value around them because they'll be dark against light. Okay, and now while I'm here and while I still got the brush loaded, I'm going to go ahead and paint in the background. And back here, I'm going to put in some darker blues. And I'm just going to put in some color. I'm not really going to just going to put in some color back, or some darker color behind this area. It's going to be it's going to be trees in the background. There going to be bushes in the background. It's just vegetation back there. So I'm just kind of putting in some color back here. It'll be filled in later with more, but just to get me started on the background, I'll make it just using this darker blue, bluish green color I have in my palette. Okay, all right, I'm going to go ahead and dry this now. So I'm going to get the blow dryer out. And I'm going to dry the painting. So what we've done so far is with the mast-in area, I went ahead and painted a medium color green around that. And on the other bushes or flower groupings, I did a light value of greenery. And then in the background, I just put in some color back there to just to indicate maybe some foliage back there of dark background trees and shapes and so forth. Some shadows. I'll turn this up a little bit more. All right. So here it was important. Number one, I masked out the white areas for the dark green. That'll give me a dark and light contrast, which is what I'm looking for. That complementary dark and light. And now I got this light green mixture, and I'm going to put the red around to give me a complementary color. And it's dried. Make sure I get most of the moisture off the paper. Okay. All right. Now what I'll do is I'm going to take a tissue. Yeah, I'll see your question. I'll be right there. I'll be with you in a second. Well, I'm picking up excess moisture now off the top of these. There's a little bit of excess water here, so I'm taking a tissue and just kind of blotting up a little bit. It won't hurt the painting. It'll keep that area nice and dry. Okay. All right. Question. As I told her, good to see you. Nice to see you. The question is. How many days can the tube watercolors that you put on a palette, and how dry for how many days? Oh, well, this is Holbein Artist Watercolor paint, and I've had this paint dried out in here for over 3 or 4 years, and all I do is add water to it, and it liquefies immediately. It's reliquefiable. So artist brand watercolors, especially Holbein, is reliquefiable. So it dries out, but then it's reliquefied with just a little bit of water. So that's the advantages of this type of paint. Holbein Artist Watercolor paint. Good question. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a little space here now for another color. And I'm going to use the rigger brush again now. I'm going to pick up a little bit of this red. This is Pyrrole Red. Pyrrole Red, very beautiful red color. It's kind of my primary color on my palette. Pyrrole Red. Again, it's an artist watercolor, Holbein Artist Watercolor. And artist watercolor is very good for an artist because it goes a long way. There's very little fillers in it. It's nice and bright color. And I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow orange. Yellow orange is a beautiful color. So I'm going to have like a reddish orange color for these flowers. So they're okay. I loaded up. I loaded my brush. Now I'm going to go in now, and I'm going to put in flower shapes. Yeah, another advantage of the Holbein watercolors is there's no oxgall. The reason it doesn't dry hard is it doesn't contain oxgall. Oxgall is a hardening agent, and what that does is when you have watercolor and you add water to it out of the tube or out of a pan, and then you put it on paper or on your painting or even in your palette. When it dries, it'll dry harder, and that's why it's hard to remove, and you almost have to take it out with a chisel. So an artist brand paint like Holbein that is reliquefiable is very convenient for artists because this paint doesn't dry hard. It dries and it dries permanent. It's a permanent color, but it doesn't harden in the palette. You can be reliquefied with water. In fact, you can easily lift it off a painting later on after it dries on the painting. You can lift it, which has an advantage also. So there's lots of reasons for having a good brand of watercolor that's you can use in the palette, and you don't waste paint. It just dries. It dries in the palette, but you can also reliquefy it. That's an advantage. And also you can also lift it with water later on. Okay, now back here I'm just going to go ahead and put some, this is the most important one up here. So back here I can just put in some color to kind of indicate the white blossoms, or red blossoms, excuse me on that. Now I might pick up a little bit of a alizarin crimson here because that's a little darker red. So these are further back. These are further back in the middle ground area. So they're not going to be as bright as the one in the foreground. So a little bit of darker red, which is alizarin crimson, just a touch, mixed in with that mixture of Pyrrole Red and yellow orange. We'll give it a darker color a little further back in the painting. So this green and red bushes I've painted in with positive technique. I've painted in the green color first and painted negative painting. Now I'm going in and putting in another color in that white space. So I used a positive painting technique for the green and red bushes. For the white and green bushes, I used the white mask, used the masking fluid. Bit of green around that. Okay. Okay. All right, I'm going to dry that now. I got the. I guess what I can do, I'm going to go ahead and start putting in some of the. Foreground and so forth. So what I'm going to do there is going to put in the what I call the darks. In this case, it's the area that's around the flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of. I took a little bit of burnt sienna mixed in with a little bit of ultramarine blue. It'll give me a dark brown. And that will show a little bit of the ground. There's a mulch. It's a mulch color. It's also leaves, twigs. It's really just the ground color, a dark brown. So here I'm just using the flat brush. I'm using two brushes today. One is the rigger and the 3/4 inch flat. And here I can go through and get the edges and so forth with this. Again, brush strokes, just using a regular flat brush stroke, using the corner of the brush to go around some of the edges, and then using a flat brush stroke to move the color around. And the value is going to be darker. I'm getting started here. I may go back in with a little bit more later on. But this is a demonstration, so it's going to show you how I painted this particular, how I approached it. It's one thing to do a painting, but I think the most important part of a painting is the planning process. You really have to think about how you're going to paint a subject and what kind of techniques you're going to use. I made a decision to use the masking fluid so it'd be easier to paint around the white color, using the white paper as the white flower, and then deciding to paint the other section with positive strokes, the green and the red and so forth. And so again, those decisions were planned ahead before I started. I knew exactly what approach I was going to use. I knew what colors I was going to work on. So I had my colors already decided. The photograph helped me I used the photograph to give me a hint on what colors. I could have used any color I wanted, but I chose the colors that attracted me in the photograph. And that was the contrasting colors, the green and the red. And this dark now against that white is going to make the white areas show up. And that's the other contrasting color, the white against the dark. So we have the contrast here of the dark value of the brown color. And also there'll be some shadows. We'll put some shadows in here also toward the end of the painting, which will also give me some dark color. Okay, now we're working toward the toward the background. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to lighten the color up just slightly. What I'm going to do here now is take that color and I'm going to add a little more water to it. I'm going to lighten it up. So as I go back to the background, it's going to be darker here and lighter in the background. So again, that'll give me indicating a little bit of depth in this painting. Also, I had that in my plan. It was to put a lighter value background here on the ground portion. Lighter value. It's still going to be a dark color, brown and blue. But it's going to be a lighter value. So as I go back into the painting, it's going to be a little bit lighter back there to show that a little bit of depth. So that you have a ground plane that's flat, and then to make it look like it's distancing into the background, you change the value. You make it dark to light or light to dark. And that's kind of a choice of the artist. And I would recommend doing it both ways and see which one you like. You can do a value study first of all, to put that into a value study. Do a quick little thumbnail sketch, and then practice where you like to put the dark area and the light area, and that will give you some clues about how you want to paint in that particular section. That would be my one suggestion, to do a value study. I didn't do a value study on this one per se. I had it in my mind what I wanted. I wanted to use the photograph as a reference, but then the colors and the values kind of made up. I didn't need too much of a plan on that. I chose the colors out of the photograph, or what I saw, and the values were also from the photograph. They were lighter in the background, so I kind of went along with the plan, what nature showed me. So I took this scene from nature that I found along the roadway, and it interested me. I saw the interest of the contrast, and that's what made me want to paint this. It's also a good demonstration of not just how to paint a subject like this, but also why we choose subjects like this. And I think a contrasting colors, especially the complementary color, is a very good way to select a painting color. Find a contrasting color or value that speaks to you, something you like. Complementary colors, it gives you a pleasing look into a painting. I guess the one that gets me the most is sunsets and sunrises, where you have that tremendous opportunity to see contrasting colors in early mornings and at the evening when the sun is setting. You have a lot of contrast going on, a lot of shadow patterns, and you have a lot of color patterns that are different colors, and that really is a good way to go for finding a good scene. Now what I'm going to do now is pick up a little more, now that I got the base coat down, I'm going to pick up a little more color now and kind of go back in and put in some darker strokes, because this area here should be darker against the ground. So I'm kind of layering, I'm going over the second layer here on the groundwork. Make this a lot darker here in the foreground to kind of contrast with the background. So this is foreground dark, and going into the background is a little bit lighter. So that's what I want to show here. Okay, now way off in the background, I'm going to just kind of fill that in with a little bit of kind of a greenish, bluish color. Could be almost a gray. So I can mix a little bit of this mixture here on the palette. I call this palette color. It's whatever's on the palette, pick it up, make it a light mix, not too dark. And you fill the brush, and then you go back in and you kind of paint over top of that what's there. And that color below will stand out. And what I'm doing now is I'm kind of going into the background now. I'm filling in that area with some color behind these background bushes. And this will homogenize, or will combine the background colors I have here. Give it a little bit of unity, in the background by merging these colors together. Otherwise they stick out. There's too much contrast in the background. I don't want that. So just kind of modify a little bit of gray, a little bluish gray, and that'll kind of modify that contrast, and will take away the interest, not the interest, but take off the attention of that area. And here I'm kind of eliminating some of the white areas along the edge. Again, I don't want too much interest going back here into the background. It's kind of just make it interesting, but not overpowering. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to dry this now, because I got it pretty well wet. I'm going to dry it, and we're going to take off the white mask. Now we'll use the blow dryer. There's a little bit of drying in there. We've covered almost the whole painting here. So what I did, I put in what I call the underground, or the groundworks, which is mulch and dirt and so forth. So I put the ground, which is underneath this layer of bushy flowers, and I made sure it was dark. I made dark brown. I used Burnt Sienna and Ultramarine to give me a dark brown mix. And I started out dark here in the foreground. As I went back, I got lighter in the background. So that would give me the impression of depth. And also you'll see that the elements themselves, as I go back, the bushes get smaller. So size is important also to indicate depth. So let's dry here. Now I'll use the back of my hand to test the, if it feels cool, it's still a little bit damp. Let me sure those areas now that the green's on should be okay to take off the masking fluid. Okay. All right, so I'm going to use. Ooh. You know what? I got my. I'm going to use my thumb and my finger. Just going to pull off the white masking fluid. on the back on the my table in the back.
Okay.
So I can rub off this this masking fluid with using my fingers. Just by rubbing against it, it'll come off. And brushing it aside. So now the white mask, which protected the white paper, now will show up the white flowers, and that's what I want. I want that white. I want that contrast of the white and the darks to show up. Okay, we got one more over here.
I'm going to pull one for you.
Oh, I'm done now. I'm done. There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm done. Here we go. Okay, now to check the paper. Now I run my hands over here, and if I feel any rough spot, then I know I still have some masking fluid there. So I can check the masking fluid by running my hands over the painting. Get the last bit off. Just run my fingers over that, and it's all gone. Okay. Okay. I have a rubber cement pickup, which is in the other room, and I didn't bring it with me today, and that's what I usually take it off with. But you can also rub it off with your fingertips. Rubber cement pickup is usually the way to do it. Okay, now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go in and do a little bit of editing here on the colors. Number one, I'm going to go in now, and I'm going to darken up some of the greenery around that. So now this is the first layer, and I'm going to go in now and put a darker value now. Use a little bit. I'm going to use more of that Ultramarine Blue and Hooker's Green. That's my dark green mix, and a lot more blue into it now. Make it a lot darker. Okay, then I'm going to go in now, and I'm going to put in really some dark shadows in here. And I can also do a little bit of editing of some of the flower shapes, just a little bit. But primarily, what I'm doing is adding more darks in here, adding more dark. Because that's what really caught my eye, was the dark white against the light flowers. So that's what I'm trying to indicate here, is the dark against the light. The contrasting color, white against dark. In this case, it's a dark green or a dark bluish green. Okay, now go back in here. Now I'm not going to cover that whole thing. I'm just going to go in now and put in a little bit of dark over here, because I got a shadow pattern coming across this, which will indicate also some parts of the highlight. The spaces along the edges are important because they have more shadow. And then this one here, I'm going to put in some, again, back here in this section, I'm going to put some darks in here. So this gives me an opportunity now to go in and do a little bit of editing here on the flower shapes. When you put them in a white mask, you just get not a blob, but you get an irregular shape. Here you can do a little bit of fine tuning on some of the shapes. But these are basically what I did now. When you paint flowers like this, the best thing to do is to paint a grouping. You paint a grouping of flowers. And so you find, let's say you find a small group, a medium-sized group, and a large group, and you put them together as a group, not as individual flowers or individual blossoms. I'll put a little back here. This is another white and a dark back here. I just put a few little dark spots here as shadow patterns from the sunlight. Again, don't need a lot of detail over here, and over here this was a little bit in foreground, but it's not as important as the other one. So we'll put a little bit of shadows in here. Okay, these are darker leaves or shadows inside the bush, the flowers. So it kind of breaks. Again, as I said, this is an opportunity to reshape some of the flowers, and then also to add some more dark into the mix here, which gives you that light and dark opportunity. And a little bit back, just a few back here in the background. Not many, because this is far way back in the background, but just a little hint here that there's some shadows, some little dark spots here in this little bush way off in the background. Don't want to leave it out. Don't want to leave them out of the picture, but they're not as important. Okay. I know. All right. Now, the other green, I'm going to put a little more green into it too. So I'm going to add a little bit more green into the yellow green. And this place here, I'm going to now here again, I'm just adding a little, what I call just a little more editing here, a little more texture. I can also shape the flowers a little more. I'm also filling in some of the white places, because this is the one where the leaves are green against the red blossoms. And when I painted this, all I'm thinking about is groupings. I'm not worrying about individual flower shapes, but I'm thinking about groupings of flowers, and that's the best way to think about a flower setup like this, is to paint groups of flowers or groups of blossoms, not individual ones. Okay, so this darker green now will what it is, gives you a nice contrast against that red. Again, I'm looking at complementary colors. The green against the red, and that's why I chose this color here. Okay. Now we'll put some back in here, and this just to add up a little more, another layer of green. Back in here, we'll put a little layer of green, also to reshape some of those flowers. I'm going to mix up a little more green, so we'll pick up a little more of that, a little more yellow in there, a little more hooker's green. Now I don't want to get too dark here. I want to keep this it's a trade-off between medium and light. You don't want to get too dark here. You just want to have enough for shadows. That's fine. But you don't want to you don't want to get carried away with competing with the darker greens. Darker greens are their own. These are more of a light to middle green, but they have shadows in there, so they'll be a little bit darker in some places. And let's see, I missed one here when I did the other green. So I missed this section in here. So now opportunity here to go reshape some of these flower shapes. Put a little extra darkness in there. Okay. Now, as far as the background goes, I like to put in a little more definition back there. Not much, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this burnt sienna, a little bit of burnt sienna, mixed in with ultramarine blue. Make me a nice dark brown. Okay, that's my mix. I'm using two brushes today. I'm using the 3/4 inch flat, and I'm using the rigger. and that's all I really need. So here I'm going to go in. I'm going to go ahead and put in some. I'm going to put in some tree shapes. Now again, making trees. I'm just making the indication. I've got some trees out here. I'm going to make them again a variety of shapes, a variety of sizes. And we don't get too carried away with this, but we want to break up this area back here just a little bit to give it a little more dimension, a little more interest back here. Kind of separate those bushes there from the background and show that there's maybe some trees back there. And it gives a little more, not interest, but just to show that, hey, there's more, something back there, not well defined, but indicating that we have, you know, there's foliage back there, foliage, trees, branches. Okay, I'll let that dry. Okay, now while that's, let's just got to blow dry this one more time. Blow dry it one more time. Because we had a lot of layers on here, I got to blow dry it some more. Okay. So I added in a darker green in here to give me that contrast with the white. The dark green in with the white give me that contrast with lights and dark. And then I add a little more darker green into the red and green mix. I'll add some more green. I'll mix this green here. I'll pick this one up. So then I went back, also put just some little definition in the background, just to show maybe some way off background trees back there, just for interest. A little texture back there, a little variety in the background. Turn up the power. So what we've demonstrated so far today is getting a complementary painting with really there are three complementaries. We got the complementary green and red color. I got the complementary value of this dark green against the white paper area. And I got the complementary of the ground itself. I got a light area and a dark area to show depth. I'll check it. Let us dry. Okay. All right. Now I think the last thing I want to do is I'm pretty happy with that so far. There's a lot of I could do some more tweaking on this thing. I could do some more little details, and that's something you can do on any painting as you go back and put in some more brushwork and so forth. But you've got the idea here of what I've done as far as the layering. Now the last little area I want to do is that there's a shadow pattern. The sun's coming this way, for example, across here. And there'll be some shadows, and I'll get some more roundness here to these areas. These are round bushes. So what I'm going to do is mix up a little bit of that gray, which will be my favorite gray mix, which is a little bit of Ultramarine Blue mixed in with a little bit of Burnt Sienna. So that'll be a nice gray mix. And I'll use a 3/4 inch brush. I could use another one, but I'm going to use this one. And a lot of water. So it's going to be a real light value. You can see that. It's not too dark. It's a light. Now, I got the sun coming this way. So this edge in here, between here will be a little bit of shadow in between these two here. And kind of break those two up. And there'll be a shadow along this side, along this edge here. And then this bush here, we're going to have a little bit of shadow along the edge. Along the edge, it's going to come down. You're going to have, because it's a rounded shape. These are not flat. These are rounded. So So I'm going to make this look a little rounder by making this edge a little duller, darker, because it's coming, it's turned. The sun has turned this value. And this one over here, same thing. I'm going to come in, and in each case I do about one third of the area I put in shadow to show the roundness. And there's a little cast shadow. Now these are two together, so a little cast shadow on this one. A little cast shadow from that one bush next to this one. And then there'll be a shadow on this edge that's falling away from the light. To give it a look of a little roundness. Okay? Then I can go back here and put a little shadow, and here's a little shadow in between these two. And there'll be a shadow back here on this one. And there'll be as we're going, just the shadow patterns are going to fall into the area that's behind this area. This one's behind this one, so I'm making this a little bit shadow here, and the shadow in between to break those up a little bit. And then I've got the little shadow on this one back here. Just a hint of a shadow. Okay, and then on the ground, I'm going to do a cast shadow across the ground, just in certain sections here. And I'm going to make this is really dark. And I'll put a lot of ultramarine blue in with that brown. Gives me a nice dark color. So in here, because this is all behind, outside the light, these is all going to be dark back here, all dark. So I'm making a special effort here to make this darker here. So this section here is going to be the darkest part of the painting, right here. This part, second, because this the most part is out of light. It's out of light. It's all in shadow, this part here on the ground. It's got a cast shadow from those flower groups. And it's casting a shadow on the ground. So therefore it would have the darkest value as far as the shadow pattern. And then cast shadow from these bushes here on the ground would come across. And I'm going to leave a little bit of light coming here, just a hint. It could be a little bit lighter across the bottom edge. It's going to be darker over here because it's in shadow. And this section out here on the edge is going to be in shadow also. Now, as the painting dries, you'll notice every painting you do, especially in watercolor, that as the paint dries, it dries lighter. So you have to plan that into your value. If you put it in, you think if it looks good when you put it in, it's wrong. You have to put it in. You have to put it in darker than you think you need it, because it's going to dry lighter. And I apologize for my head being in the way. I'm sorry. Put a little bit darker up here. There. Okay. And then I guess if I really, it's not a technical thing, but back here there might be a little shadow cast. There might be a little shadow cast across here around these bushes, just to show the direction of light somehow. Not too much light back there. Okay. I think what I'll do is I'll cover that up. It looks a little bit better if it's off all the way there. Leave a little bit of lighter area here. Okay. All right. Well, that's about what I wanted to show. Now let me put a mat around this, and let's kind of show it off a little bit. I'm going to put a white mat around this. Like that. There. Okay. I have the complementary colors, the green and the red colors here, and then I have the complementary colors of it's really black and white, but it's dark and white. The white flower against the dark or black shadowy background. Okay. That's what I was looking for. A contrasting color. This is a natural scene. It was, there's a planted pots and planted flower arrangements, but as I found it in nature, that's how nature grows also. Okay, these were done physically put in by someone else by hand, but then I chose it as a painting opportunity to show a contrasting color and value painting.
As told us, internet is weak, and so he's asked us to repeat. So very briefly, Holbein paints have no oxgall, which is a hardening agent. Therefore, the paints last a long time. And Everett has had those paints in the palette, or because he has several palettes, but he has had them for at least 3 years and just adds water and it comes right back to life. So I hope you were able to hear us this time.
I'll go on to Facebook. I'll go on the main camera.
Okay.
Hey. Okay. Well, this is Everett. I really, first of all, I really enjoyed doing that painting, and I hope you got a lot out of that contrasting color arrangement. And paint along with me. I've got the diagram and the painting information on my Facebook, on my website page. As far as the colors paints go, oxgall is a very important ingredient in paints, and the artist watercolor of Holbein does not contain oxgall. Therefore, it doesn't harden. Now, the water will be absorbed and it will dry. The paint will dry, but it won't dry hard. Therefore, in my palette, I've had that paint in there for over 3 or 4 years. I've had this palette forever, and it dries. But then all I do is add water to it, and it comes back and reconstitutes the mixture. So, I hope that answers that question. And I'll be on later on this evening at 7:30 with Simply Drawing with Everett. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be on this evening. So I hope you enjoyed that. I did another one, but I think I'm going to leave this alone as it is. I really like what happened here. So I'll be back again next week at 2 o'clock for Everett's Watercolors, and it'll be 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So until next week. Happy painting, and goodbye.